Welcome back to the Black Pearl. Marine Tech Mike. We're down here. The weather's changed. Wind's blowing. We're in the throes of teaching new technicians about batteries and storage and sizing house battery banks. So just did a tech tip on exhaust temperature alarm. The best alarm you could put on your marine engine. Thanks, Gio. But that's a different topic. So this is not really a tech tip. We got a bunch of tech tips in the queue to film. This is more like tech training. And so the question is, we did the lesson. This is videos for review for the students, is how do you size a house battery bank for a cruising vessel? We've been talking about alternators and how do they work, and so all these variables on a boat. And when you're new to the industry, it's hard. And even on board boats, it's difficult to say how much energy storage we need for a house battery bank because every boat owner is so different. You can take the exact same two 40-foot boats, and one of them gets by on almost no electricity, and the other one needs to run a generator almost constantly. And so, but how do you know? So the first thing is, before you can size a battery bank, is the boat owner has to have a quality battery monitor. And I've had 3 or 4 or 5 different brands on the boat here. I don't think brand matters, is that you have something that has a shunt and actually counts amps in and out over time, which is translated with the little computer. Its only job is to tell how much energy you've removed from the battery and how much you've put in, whether you're running an engine or a generator or whatever the charging source, solar, doesn't matter. So the only way we could properly size battery banks is, first of all, the boat owner needs to do some research and find out what their average daily use is and how they want to use the boat. Is it an every day we're going to charge, twice a day, once a week? Depends on the boat owner once again. So I'm just going to use a scenario of similar to my boat. And we're going to say that in order to size the battery bank, I've been out researching and I use between 75 and 100 amp hours per day in the summertime. Okay? There we have a number. That's our usage. And I'm going to say, well, times 2 days. I want to be able to sit, motor someplace, anchor on Friday night and sit for all day Saturday and Sunday, come back Monday, and have enough battery power for those 2 full days. So if I use 100, you always round up, then times 2 days, I need about 200 amp hours of storage. So here's my usage, and I know that from my battery monitor over there, the Balmar, the Victron, whatever it is you have. So I'm going to start by saying I need 200 amp hours at 12 volts for my storage. And I'm going to replenish that over here with either a alternator on my engine, which is going to recharge that so I can use it as the main engine as a battery charger, or I'm going to use a generator and I'm going to run that for a period of time, and that will go through some sort of a battery charger, usually an inverter charger. So the inverter then is going to be providing this recharge energy. So the thing is with this, if we have a target of 200 amp hours, now if you wanted more days, obviously less days, whatever, and how I recharge this 200 is kind of out in the open. I could do, say, a 200 amp alternator, which is what I have, at 1 hour. So I could be like, if I'm just going to pull out of a bay, lift my anchor, run the engine for an hour, and I want to recharge this so I can sail to the next bay and have 2 more days, well then I'm going to need to do that big alternator. If I have a 100 amp alternator and I'm going to live with that, I just know that I would need 2 hours per day in order to do that. If you're running a generator, same thing. You're going to look at your charging source. For me, it's my inverter. I got the Multi Plus. It's going to charge at 100 amps. If I was plugged in, if I was using AC, shore power, or if I had a generator on this boat, I would be like, well, it's putting out 100 amps. I'm going to need to recharge. It's going to take 2 hours running the generator. Okay? And so we've now established, and here's where the tricky part comes in. we can dial in between battery monitoring and charging how these things meld. But here's the deal. When you go to needing 200 amps, so here's my average battery. I'll probably get some of that fancy animation stuff someday. I don't know. I think the pencil works just fine. And by the way, this is lead. We're just talking lead batteries here. Lithium, it's a lot of hubbub about lithium, and I have some here. We're experimenting with it, but lead is good. It's recyclable, works for many of our boats. Okay, so but here's the thing: you take any lead battery, you look around, do your research. We know that the more you use, the less cycle life you get. And we would like these batteries to last on a cruising boat 6 to 8 years, ideally, at least 5. And so in order to do that, we need to keep those batteries above 50% state of charge. That's just cycle life, common knowledge that that's where we're at. If we're using more than that on a regular basis, we're just going to get less cycle lives. Now, if you don't have a ton of storage in your boat, you might go down to 40% or 30, and just realize that you're going to get 4 years out of your batteries or whatever. Price of doing business. But ideally, 50% is my bottom threshold. Here comes the tricky part. You're going to recharge your battery. The upper threshold for what's easy is about 85%. And what I mean by easy is this. In lead-based batteries, it's like a parking garage. I think I talked about this in my alternator video. Think about this. If you're going down and you've got a bunch of cars and they're going to park at SeaTac Airport in this parking garage, when it's half full, you just drive in, grab a spot, and park your car, grab your suitcase, and you're off traveling. As that parking garage fills up, it's the same as a battery, it gets harder and harder for you to find a parking spot. It's actually the electrons are finding where's the vacancies. And so up to about 85% full, relatively easy to find a parking spot. But once we get into that 85, 90, 95, 98%, it can take hours to recharge your batteries, literally hours. And so the easy part, the usable energy in lead is really about from 50% up to 85. That's 35%. That's a third. And so that's significant. Now, that is one of the big benefits of lithium. When they say it has X amount of storage, it's usable, easy storage. But let's go back to our picture. Now that I know it's a third, if I am targeting 200 usable amp hours, then I need to make the house battery bank triple that. I need 600 amp hours of usable energy. And here on Black Pearl, we went to 750, and if we're conserving pretty conservatively, we can go an easy 3 days. In the summertime, we've got solar to offset it. We can go 4 or 5 days, long time without recharging, which is super awesome. But the idea that we're doing is when you're sizing these batteries is it takes a lot of energy storage to get that nice, easy, where we can run a 200 amp hours, 200, boom, in and out every day. Bleed it down, charge it up, or bleed it down for 2 days, charge it up. Maybe on a power boat, as long as you know what you have, with a generator boat, you might just be like, it takes an hour in the morning, it takes an hour in the evening. We set up a Hallberg Rossi like that. It was, when it was at sea, was using a lot of energy for the autopilot and the navigation and so on and so forth. We had it targeted where we needed to run the little 3.5 kilowatt generator 2 hours a day. We had a backup, nice alternator on the diesel motor, and the backup would have been shut down some of the big loads like the autopilot and stuff and hand steer and get to port. But we had a system that worked, and that's the idea, is what works for you and for onboard your boat. So if you use that rule of whatever you want to use, calculate it out per day, and then say, I need this, you need to triple it. And hopefully you have enough space and weight and money to make that house battery bank in that configuration. And then you're going to be happy. We've been doing this on Black Pearl for 15 years or more, where we've got the system set up. We have all the energy we need, and it's a great system. Now, One more caveat with lead-based batteries is when we're recharging, okay, we're pouring the energy back in. It's not unlimited like lithium is. We can do up to 25% super easily, but we really want to target between 25 and 50% of your main capacity for recharge. And you're going to be doing this with temperature compensation. All of our modern charging devices are going to watch the alternator temperature and the battery temperature. So if either of those start getting too high, we can slow things down a little bit. And that way, that's how we're going to get you this 7-year circumnavigation on one set of batteries. So what we're saying is you can't say like, oh, I want to put two 200 amp alternators on and recharge in 20 minutes or something, 30 minutes. That's not going to work, because if you only have 600 amp hours, it's just like, you know, and you're trying to put 400 back into there. It's not going to work. It's just like trying to put a whole bunch of cars into the parking garage at one time. There's a limit to how many access points we have and how that's going to work. And so less than 50%, more than 25 is ideal. And so on the boat here, we installed a 200 amp alternator right at 33% of our overall capacity. Works really well. The alternator's not overtaxing the batteries. They're not getting hot. We can pour that energy in really quickly, and then we just keep boating. So thanks for watching. Hope this tech tip helps. It's not a tech tip, tech training right here about how do you size house battery banks. And the thing is, make them big. That is what's going to really make your system last. So stay tuned. We'll do some more fun stuff right down here on the Motor Sailor Black Pearl. All boats are different. How are you going to find the house battery bank or start batteries? Well, the first clue is you never know where they're going to be, because they could be under a settee or a locker, whatever. But on Black Pearl, technicians, your first trip down here, you're going to have seen the video. You know the batteries are in the hallway under this floor just outside of the engine space. But the tip is just go into the engine space, take a look, and you can find the main house battery on-off switch. Follow that down, and you look, and the cables go down and come over this direction. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start looking around. And sure enough, when you open up these hatch panels, you end up seeing the house battery banks right in here. And a couple of nice tech tips. Installed February 2017. Approximately 800 amp hours total. We tested them. If you get down on the side of these batteries, they're technically rated at about 750 amp hours. I believe that's at a 10-hour rate. So a 20-hour rate, a little more. Basically, we know about how much we have. And so we can get in here, open up both of these, and we're talking about how to size with the capacity. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 batteries. 5 at 150 would be 600 plus 150. You got 750, 800 amps of amp hours of storage. This is a 12-volt system. I know we're in the States. We're still talking amp hours, with a lot of modern boats switching to 24 or 48-volt platforms for house storage. We should be getting into kilowatt hours. But this is what I've been teaching for the last decade. People coming down here. So this is what we have. House battery banks located near the engine space with the switch and our alternator. And so let's go back to talking about how do you size a bank to make it work for a cruising boat.